big news came on June 23, 2025. It was a great surprise for many people around the world. The news was about a terrible war stopping. President Donald Trump of the United States made the announcement. He used his social media platform to tell everyone about the important news. President Trump announced that there would be a full and complete ceasefire between Iran and Israel. A ceasefire means that all fighting stops completely. This important agreement would start very soon, within 24 hours from the announcement time. This news meant the intense 12-day war was said to be over. Iran and Israel had been fighting very intensely for almost 2 weeks. For 12 days, there were many strong attacks. Missiles and bombs flew between the two countries across the Middle East. People were badly hurt, and many homes and buildings were damaged on both sides. This fighting was very dangerous and caused great worry around the world. People everywhere were afraid that the war could grow much bigger and involve more countries. President Trump explained the agreement a little more. He said it would happen in steps, like a plan. First, Iran would stop its attacks completely. After that, Israel would stop its attacks. He called this the official end to the fighting and praised both countries for agreeing. However, the news brought mixed feelings to many people. Some felt a lot of hope. They were thankful that the violence might finally stop, saving lives and preventing more damage. But many people also had doubts. They were not sure if this peace would truly last, because the anger between the two sides is very deep. Some felt skeptical because the fighting had been so strong just hours before the announcement. Leaders from Iran and Israel gave different messages about the agreement soon after President Trump's announcement, adding to the uncertainty. This story will try to help us understand what led to this surprising moment of peace. It will explain what happened during the 12-day war before the ceasefire announcement. It will explore the events, the reasons for the conflict, and the steps that brought this sudden pause to the fighting between Iran and Israel. Understanding these complex events is very important to see what might happen next. 2. The war begins. The situation quickly became very serious. Israel started a large attack. They called this attack Operation Talu Sharons. It was a big strike using planes and missiles against places in Iran. Israel's leader, Prime Minister Netanyahu, said the goal was to stop Iran from being a danger to Israel and to damage its weapons power. Right away, Iran was very angry. They said they would fight back with strength, and they did. Just 1 day later, Iran fired missiles. Many ballistic missiles flew towards Israel. Israel used its defense systems to try and stop the missiles in the sky. Some missiles were stopped, but others hit the ground. This was the start of open fighting between the two countries. For several days, missiles were fired back and forth. It was a dangerous time for people living in both places. Missiles landed near cities in Israel. Emergency teams had to help people. Buildings were damaged, and sadly, people were hurt on both sides. Reports said that civilians, who are not soldiers, were killed and injured. News of this fighting spread fast around the world. Other countries watched what was happening with great worry. They were nervous about the future. Leaders in many nations feared that this fighting between Iran and Israel could become a much bigger war, maybe pulling in other countries too. The first days of the war were full of attacks and fear, a major change from the quiet that came before. 3. Why they fight. Iran and Israel have had problems for a very long time. Their anger and disagreement go back many years. This history is very important to understand why they fight now. A big change happened in 1979. There was a revolution in Iran. After this, Iran's government changed a lot. Its view of Israel changed too. Iran began to see Israel as a main enemy. They stopped all their official ties and talks. This made things much worse between the two countries. One major reason for the fighting is Israel's big worry about Iran's nuclear program. Israel is afraid that Iran is trying to build nuclear weapons. Israel believes this is a very serious danger, maybe even a danger to its existence. Iran says its nuclear program is not for weapons. It says it is only for making energy, like electricity, for the country. But Israel does not believe this and is very concerned. Another reason is that Iran supports groups in other countries that fight against Israel. For example, Iran helps groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. These groups often use rockets or other ways to attack Israel. This makes the fighting spread to other places and adds to the anger. For about 40 years, Iran and Israel did not often fight each other directly with their main armies. Instead, they fought in other ways. They had small, secret attacks. Israel sometimes attacked places in countries like Syria where Iran had people or weapons. Iran supported groups to fight Israel. These were like shadow fights, not open war. But these secret fights and old problems did not go away. The anger and mistrust grew. Now, these long-standing problems have led to a direct and open war between the two countries. The 12-day war is not new fighting without a reason. It grew from many years of deep disagreement, fears about nuclear weapons, and fighting through other groups. It shows how serious the problems between Iran and Israel are. 4. America joins the fight. The war between Iran and Israel was causing worry around the world. The fighting was intense, with missiles flying back and forth. Then, the United States military took a direct step in the conflict. The United States launched a surprise attack on Iran. They used powerful B-2 bombers. These were not normal bombs. They were very heavy bombs designed to hit strong targets, especially underground. The U.S. dropped 14 of these bombs on 3 secret places in Iran. These places were related to Iran's nuclear work. The U.S. said they did this to stop Iran from possibly making nuclear weapons. President Trump announced the attack. He said the American strike was very successful. He claimed the U.S. military had caused monumental damage to Iran's nuclear facilities. This meant the damage was very big and important. Iran reacted with strong words. They said the United States had no right to attack their country. Iran called the U.S. action an illegal aggression, saying it broke international law. Iran promised to get revenge for this attack. Iran acted on its promise soon after. Iran fired missiles. The target was the Al Udeid air base in the country of Qatar. This base is very important for the United States military in the Middle East. Iran sent these missiles to show they would not accept the American attack without fighting back. However, Qatar's defense system was ready. Using Patriot missiles, Qatar's military successfully stopped all the incoming Iranian missiles. They shot them down before they could hit the base. This meant that the U.S. base in Qatar was safe. No Americans were hurt during the attack. President Trump later confirmed this, saying, "No Americans were harmed," and that there was hardly any damage done to the base. He described Iran's missile response as very weak. The American attack on Iran's nuclear sites and Iran's missile strike on the U.S. base in Qatar were key moments. They showed how dangerous the 12-day war had become, drawing in the United States directly. People around the world were very concerned that the conflict would grow bigger and bigger. But even as these serious events happened, talks were beginning to try and find a way to stop the violence and bring peace. 5. Making peace. The 12-day war between Iran and Israel was very dangerous. It caused fear and damage. Many people around the world hoped the fighting would stop soon. Because of this, important leaders started working quietly to find a way for peace. This work happened away from the news and the public. It was a difficult job because the feelings between the countries were very bad. The United States was also part of the problem after its military action. The country of Qatar became a key helper in these peace talks. Qatar is located in the Middle East and has connections with different nations. It was able to talk to both Iran and the United States. After Iran fired missiles at a U.S. military base inside Qatar, the Qatari leader became very involved. He called leaders in Iran and helped send messages between them and the U.S. officials. This communication was vital for the talks to move forward. Qatar acted as a bridge between the sides that were fighting. Many phone calls and messages were exchanged secretly between the different governments. Leaders were talking about stopping the conflict and finding a way to end the attacks. U.S. officials were active participants in these discussions, working towards a ceasefire agreement. President Trump played a direct role. He spoke on the phone with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They discussed the serious situation and how they could bring the war to an end. President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu worked together to create a specific plan for stopping the fighting. Their plan was designed to happen in steps. First, Iran would agree to stop all its attacks and military actions against Israel. Then, after Iran stopped, Israel would stop its own attacks against Iran. This was meant to happen within a short period, like one day or 24 hours. It was a way to test the willingness of each side to stop fighting without risking too much at first. This agreement, helped by Qatar's efforts and the direct talks involving President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, was announced as a ceasefire plan. It gave hope that the 12-day war could finally end. It was a moment of great importance for the region and the world. However, everyone knew that the deep disagreements between Iran and Israel were still present. The success of this plan depended on trust and whether both sides would truly follow the steps. This work behind the scenes was the foundation for the public announcement that peace might be coming. 6. The world reacts. News of the peace plan spread quickly. Around the world, people waited to hear what would happen. In Israel, officials spoke about the agreement. They said that Israel would follow the ceasefire plan. This means they would stop their attacks. But they added a condition. Israel would only stop fighting if Iran also stopped attacking. They were ready, but they watched Iran closely. In Iran, the message was not so clear. Leaders gave different ideas about the peace. Some important people said that the fighting would only truly stop if Israel ended all its attacks. They said Iran would always defend itself. Some advisors even said the news of a ceasefire was not true. They seemed to think Israel was having problems and the news was fake. So, Iran's position was complex. They said no enemy peace would work if Israel did not completely stop its fighting. President Donald Trump in the United States announced the ceasefire. He used his social media to share the news. He said it was a very big success for peace. He called the fighting the 12-day war and said it was officially ending. President Trump said that Israel and Iran had both come to him with ideas for peace. He said the world and the Middle East were the real winners. He hoped for peace and good times between the two countries in the future. Countries in the Middle East also reacted. Qatar was important in helping Iran and the U.S. talk. When Iran attacked the U.S. base in Qatar, Qatar said it was wrong. Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, two other countries in the area, also said Iran's attack was bad. All these countries were worried during the fighting. They hoped that the ceasefire would stop a bigger war from starting in their region. They wanted calm. Leaders and groups around the world welcomed the news. The head of the United Nations said that using the military was not the way to fix things in the Middle East. He said the fighting should stop right away. Countries in Europe were happy to hear the fighting might stop, but they were also careful. They said the peace plan needed to be strong and work well. They knew the problems between Iran and Israel were still there. Many people felt relief that the fighting stopped, but they also felt unsure. They wondered if the peace would last. The problems that caused the war were not gone. The mistrust between Iran and Israel was still very deep. The world watched to see if both sides would keep their promise. Oil prices went down a little, showing that people hoped things would be calmer. But everyone knew that the situation was still difficult and could change fast. The announcement stopped the fighting for now, but it did not fix the old problems. 7. What this means for everyone. The ceasefire is a stop in the 12-day war. It means the fighting between Iran and Israel is quiet now. People in both countries feel safer because the bombs and missiles have stopped for the moment. The Middle East is an important place for the world. When there is war here, it can make problems for many other countries. The ceasefire helps to stop the chance of the war getting bigger and including more nations. This fighting also affects things like the price of oil around the world. A lot of oil comes from the Middle East. War there can make the price of oil go up fast. This makes it more expensive for people to travel or make things. When President Trump announced the ceasefire, the price of oil went down a little bit. This shows how important peace in this area is for the world economy. It helps things be more steady and sure for everyone. But it is very important to know that the main problems between Iran and Israel are still there. They have a long history of not agreeing. They do not trust each other. Israel is worried about Iran's plans for nuclear power and weapons. Iran does not like Israel and supports groups that fight against it. These big problems did not go away because of the ceasefire. They are still there, deep between the two countries. The world is watching this situation very closely now. Leaders in other countries and groups like the United Nations hope very much that the peace will continue. They want Iran and Israel to keep their promise and not start fighting again. It is a time when things could get better, but the danger is still there. The situation is not strong or certain yet. President Trump shared the news of the ceasefire. He announced it on his social media platform. This was a new way to tell the world about something so big. Usually, countries talk in private first to agree on peace. This public announcement by President Trump makes people think about how countries should talk to each other to stop wars and make peace. It shows that the ways countries work together are changing. Many people who study this part of the world say this ceasefire is just a chance to pause. The most difficult work is still ahead. Iran and Israel need to build trust. They need to find ways to talk about the big reasons they have fought for so long. If they cannot talk and find some solutions, the fighting might start again later. This chance for peace is very important. It could lead to a better future for the people in the region and for the world. But it will not be easy. The world hopes they can use this pause to build something stronger. 8. Will the peace last? After the ceasefire was announced, many people asked, will the peace last? Experts were not sure. The two countries, Iran and Israel, still did not trust each other. This was a big, old problem. It did not go away just because the fighting stopped. Some felt the agreement was fragile. This means it could break easily. The deep mistrust and anger were still there. Under the quiet, any small new event could make the conflict start again quickly. It was hard to know if the promises made were strong enough. There were no international soldiers or groups to make sure the peace held. It depended mostly on the countries themselves. But some people had hope. They thought maybe this pause in fighting could help. It was a chance. Maybe the leaders could use this time for real talks. Maybe they could talk about the big reasons for the fighting. Maybe a stronger peace could start from this fragile moment. Some believed that both countries had fought hard. They might prefer talking now instead of fighting more. The 12-day war stopped. The loud sounds of missiles and bombs were gone for now. People in the region could breathe a little easier. But the future was not clear. There were many questions left without answers. Would Iran stop its support for groups that fight Israel? Would Israel stop its actions that Iran sees as threats? Would other countries help the peace stay strong? Different people and governments around the world had different ideas about the chances for peace. Some were happy but careful. Others were very doubtful. The situation was still very delicate. It was like walking on thin ice. One wrong step could make the ice break. The world watched carefully to see what would happen next. Would the countries keep their promise? Would this be a lasting peace? Or was it just a short time of quiet before more fighting? Former President Trump had announced the ceasefire suddenly. It stopped the shooting, yes, but it did not fix the deep reasons why Iran and Israel were enemies. The peace was new and not strong yet. Only time would tell if it would truly last. What do you think? Can these two countries find a lasting peace after the fighting stopped?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.